We are home. So what's next? Hi, this is Rachel from 7 and All, and if you have been following my channel, you will know that for the past several months, my family, who normally lives in Southeast Asia, has been traveling in the United States, doing some road schooling, as it were, spending a lot of time with our family that we don't normally get to spend time with because we live so far away. We spent 4 solid months traveling, and as you can now tell by my staircase, we are home and very, very happy to be home. So in this video, it's going to be my update on the second half of our road schooling adventures, sharing some highlights and some challenges, and talking a little bit about what we're going to do now that we're home and we can get back to normal life. Okay, first of all, can I just give myself a quick round of applause for keeping a homeschool channel active and running while not being at home and kind of barely doing schoolwork for 4 solid months. I'm proud of myself. I can say that, right? Okay, maybe it's a little awkward, but I'll still say it anyways. So during our trip, we were in 23 states total. That was our final state count. We slept in something like around 17 to 18 different places. A few of those places were in our vehicles at a truck stop. I think we had 4 nights that we slept in the van. I recommend it as a money-saving strategy. I don't really recommend it as a sleeping strategy. But I will always remember sleeping in a truck stop with, the lights in the parking lot and my 2-year-old holding him the entire night in the passenger seat of the vehicle. I will always remember it. But most of the time we were not sleeping in vehicles. We were staying with friends, staying with family, and are so grateful to them. Like, they are the reason that we took this trip, and they are also what makes it possible for us to take this trip, that we can go and we can spend 2 weeks with my aunt and uncle, staying with them, really getting to invest in those relationships, spend time with my cousins. That is what makes this trip, what made this trip so very, very special. So I'm going to talk about some of the challenges and the highlights, and I'm going to talk about the challenges first, just because I'm that kind of person, but I want you to know that I'm not saying this from a perspective of, this was a terrible idea, although there were moments on the trip when I was like, okay, why did we decide to do this again? But then there were plenty of moments when I'm like, yes, this is why we decided to do this. So first of all, the first major challenge of the second half of the trip was that my husband was not there. So for the last 9 weeks that we were in America, my husband had already come back home. He had to go back to work, and I was staying on extra with the boys to kind of take this extra opportunity. My parents and my sisters are in the States right now, so we could spend some extra time with them and traveling with them. So I was not alone, but I did not have my husband. And that is a little challenge. It was something we willingly did. We did plan on it, but it does make things a little extra challenging. I, of course, missed him dearly. That's the longest we've been apart in almost 12 years. So missing him, and the boys actually did really, really well they handled being apart from him very well. We had daily phone calls, managing the time zone. So usually like right before bed or right when we woke up in the morning, we would try to call him. But there just are some physical challenges that come along with that. Like every public bathroom stop across the entire United States, having to take both the boys, trying to fit all 3 of us in one public bathroom stall, which were not really made for 3 people size, even if 2 of those people are very small. So, because I do realize, with 2 parents and 2 kids, I realize how much we do divide and conquer. He takes one to the bathroom, I take the other to the bathroom. Or at bedtime, he brushes one set of teeth, I brush one set of teeth, he showers them, I dress them. So to go from, having that normal routine to suddenly, okay, every single step of the bedtime routine is on you. Okay, every potty stop, both of them is on you. And just all of those things. So it worked, we did it, but I think everybody who has had to take care of kids, and take care of all the physical needs for very little ones without help, really appreciates that help. And I always have appreciated his help. I appreciate that we are a great team. I missed him dearly. I wish he could have joined us, but I'm also glad that we had the guts to say, hey, you know, for this very rare opportunity, we're gonna give our kids the chance to spend more time with family, spend more time in a place that they don't really get to spend time in, and we'll kind of just take on this little added challenge of being apart for this time. But I'm very glad that we're back together now. So that was the kind of major characterizing challenge of the second 2 months. The other big challenge was that we were on the move a lot in the second 2 months. We were changing locations quite a bit more, and there wasn't really a lot of space to have a routine, which is hard with little ones, especially little ones who do thrive on a routine, thrive on expectations. So you could see a little bit of that the constant transitions were creating stress on them. It was a little bit of stress on me to always be parenting in someone else's house, to not always get to parent in exactly the way you want to, because of course the rules are different in every house, the expectations and what kids can and cannot do. It was overall a very, very good experience, but not without challenge. But as I said in a previous video, we should not be too scared to do hard things when those hard things are good and worthwhile things. So we should not just let challenge and hardness make us think, oh, this is too scary, I shouldn't do it. I'm glad I did it, but I can also acknowledge, yeah, that was a little more challenging than just staying home would have been. It was. Still worth doing. This truly was an epic trip, a once-in-a-lifetime experience for us. We were as far south as the Alamo in San Antonio, Texas, and as far north as the UP in Michigan. We were as far west as the Bighorn Mountains and as far east as Washington, D.C. So we were everywhere within the past couple of months. It felt like, granted, we didn't go everywhere. We only went to 23 states. But it was quite a bit, and we made the most of it. We have families scattered around the country. We were planning trips and scheduling stays around where we have family living or where we used to live and where we have friends living. And also we were wanting to see some of the really great sights of America, things that are very different and very foreign to our own life here. So when I look back on the highlights from this trip and the things that were so special to me for the boys to experience, there's quite a bit of variety, because there's those really grand experiences like taking them to the Badlands and having them just look out at this immense beauty of creation, this really, really cool national park. So there's those kind of experiences that really stand out as highlights. And then there's the more kind of simple and even more precious experiences, like seeing my sons get to dance with my grandma who has very advanced dementia. And she doesn't know who they are, she doesn't know who I am, but she was so happy to see them every time she did see them. And she would get up and she would dance with them to, you know, just like whatever music is on a commercial playing on the TV. But those were the kind of highlights that we were experiencing, from really truly grand things, bucket list kind of things like the Badlands, and simple everyday moments that we don't get to have as an international family. So it's really precious to me. My sons got to spend quite a bit of time with different uncles, with my brother, with some of my sisters who live very far away over there in Michigan, with my aunts and with my cousins. So I'm coming out of the trip really feeling like, you know, my kids really got a chance to know who their family is. And now if I say these different names, this uncle, that aunt, this cousin, they now know who I'm talking about. They have personal memories. It's not just a face on mom's phone screen. It's not just a picture in a photo album and I'm telling the kids about them. It's someone who's real to them. I got to look, while I was there, I got to look through some very old photo albums of my grandparents and my great-grandparents. And my son was able to realize, oh, you know, this is great-grandpa when he was a kid, and he knows great-grandpa now. He knows great-grandma now. So that is just really one of the precious things to me. But beyond that, also just experiences that are not part of our life here in Southeast Asia. I always say we're in a place where the big city meets the rainforest. So jungle and urban experiences are our life, but kind of rural Midwestern experiences are not our life. So we got to spend a good bit of time on the farm and working on the farm. My sister and her husband have started a small farming operation, and so every week we are getting to help them get ready for market. So So my boys got to, harvest carrots and green beans and cherry tomatoes. And you do have to be a little bit careful about letting my boys loose in the garden, because it turns out that letting small children garden is the best way to get them to eat vegetables. So if you actually want to sell cherry tomatoes, maybe don't let my kids harvest them, because you might not get that many. Too many will go in the mouth. But that was a very big highlight experience. Another big highlight was when we got to spend 2 weeks staying in a remote area of northern Michigan. And I know I'm so biased, but I think northern Michigan has got to be one of the prettiest places on the planet. So we're staying in a place where you could go weeks without seeing a human being that you're not related to. And it was, for this introvert, it was absolutely glorious. Got to take my boys kayaking on the big lake and let them play in this just crystal clear water. They're out there catching crawdads. We got to do some volunteering at like a wilderness area and pick, we were weeding an invasive species out of that area. Like, there were so many just cool experiences. It's so foreign to this life, and there's always been this part of me that kind of just wants to live in a remote cabin in the woods and write books and never see people. Now, I realize that seeing people is important. It's actually a strong value to me, having a life lived in community. It is important, but I have that streak in me that wants to live in a cabin in the woods forever. So getting to live that and have my boys just experience being outside from dawn till dusk and playing in the woods and catching frogs was a huge highlight and very precious. A couple of other major highlights was one, we went fake camping in the Bighorn Mountains. And what I mean by fake camping is my mom wanted to go camping, but my aunt was like, you will freeze to death if you go camping, which is probably true because it gets down to freezing at night, even in the summer, there in the mountains, and we don't have any equipment that will stop us from freezing to death. So what we did was we packed up some basic camping stuff, a tent and hammocks, some fire stuff and food. We drove out to the mountains early in the morning, set up a tent, spent the whole entire day there, took naps in the tent, read books in our hammocks, played cards in the woods, cooked over a fire, and then we went home at night so that we didn't freeze to death. It was a glorious day, super, super fun. I kind of got that camping experience without actually having to stay overnight without enough cold weather equipment to keep us warm. So that was great. Getting to have my boys experience just the vastness of the great out west was really cool. We visited a 55,000 acre bison ranch, which was super fascinating, really interesting to listen to all that the rancher had to tell us about the process of raising bison for meat. That was awesome. Then over on the East Coast, we went to Washington, D.C. That's the first time I've ever been in my life, and the memorials were amazing. But one really interesting standout experience from there was going to the Museum of the Bible in Washington, D.C. And we spent over 8 solid hours in the Museum of the Bible. It was really, really interesting and engaging. I think you guys know, probably because I wrote that unit study about the history of the English Bible. The history of the Bible is something that's super fascinating to me. The Bible's impact on culture and language around the world is fascinating. There are a lot of cool exhibits, so that's something that you don't necessarily hear about people going to Washington, D.C. for, but that was a super cool experience. So that really sums up our trip. It was, the highlights were these small moments of playing games with my cousins and getting to see my kids put names to faces and to feel connected to their family. That is something that I do feel like as an international family, we have to be very intentional about. And it was also made up of getting to do special things with my kids, things that are far outside of our normal everyday life. On the other hand, I love my normal everyday life. I love my work. I love my home. I love my just community and my normal, simple routines of homeschool and raising my boys here, and I missed it. I really missed it by the time we were coming back, and I was very ready to be home. 4 months was a very long time to be away from home. I'm glad we did it, and now I'm glad that I get to be home for a good long time. So I arrived home 2 days ago, and I have been busily putting away all the new homeschool supplies and prepping up our homeschool curriculum and getting ready to start right away. And I'm really excited about it. My son is really excited because he's been watching me, and he's like, oh, when are we gonna start schoolwork? I'm like, very soon, on Monday. So I've been getting ready for that. We are gonna be jumping right into a full, like our normal school routine. While we were there, my son did finish all of his preschool like workbooks that I had bought him or had for him. So he finished all those. I didn't bring any of those back. We're gonna be going back into our pre-K routine for him. I'm going to be adding on 3-year-old preschool for my younger son. He's very ready. He is talking so much. He's in a very receptive stage with language, I think, because he's just repeating everything we say. He is wanting to sing songs all the time. So I'm starting 3-year-old preschool with him with a focus on vocabulary building and just talking. He was kind of late to talk. He didn't say his first word until he was 1.5 years old, but he's really now in a stage of really blossoming with language and being very curious, and it seems like he's having constant new vocabulary every day. So I want to capitalize on that stage and really do some intentional work with him on singing those songs, reading him stories, having him learn new words. Like, he loves to repeat words, so saying words for him to repeat. So stay tuned. I'm going to show a schedule on how I will be giving them both their kind of individual time, meeting their individual needs. And I am pretty sure that I'm going to be doing monthly homeschool update videos sharing exactly what we're doing in a month. If you want to see that, definitely let me know, because I want to make the kind of videos that you guys actually want to watch. So that's kind of what we're doing going forward. I'm really excited, eager to be back into our normal school routine. Glad we did it and glad to be done. Let me know in the comments, how's your school year going so far? I'm assuming you probably already started, because starting in October is not that normal. But I'm excited to be back. All right, I'll be seeing you. Bye.